Hi. So, for our second movie on the movie challenge, we picked number 30, which was about an historical figure. Why we picked it. We picked the movie Lincoln, and we picked it because I've really been wanting to watch it for a long time. Andy got it for me for Christmas and just was never interested in watching it, didn't want to watch it with me. So finally I had an excuse. What did you like about it?
Well, what I liked about it was when I didn't want to watch it originally because I thought it was going to be like really old timey and you know thous and thous and all this kind of stuff where you can't follow it, and they don't really uh, talk any differently than they would in a movie about modern times.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's cool about it is it kind of like just demystifies the historical time because it shows all the background, like politicking that they had to do to get the votes, which made it more real and interesting, rather than everybody is so good and such a great historical figure that it's kind of like overdone. So they brought it down to like the human level, and it looked like politics would today. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of cool. What did you like about it?
Well, I liked the guy who played Lincoln, Daniel Day-Lewis. I guess he won an Oscar for that, so that makes sense. He was like the epitome of Lincoln to me. I like the family scenes. I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He didn't have too big of a role, but I like the family scenes. I liked his scenes with his wife and with his sons. There was one scene that I really liked too, where he's in a horse and buggy and you see the Capitol building, and I just love that scene. I love DC. I love that city. So it was really cool to see a horse and buggy and, nothing like really built up around it, but you could still see the Capitol building, so that was cool. And like, I agree, you got to see how like the politics worked and how it differed from today and how it was kind of the same, and kind of reminded me of House of Cards. You get to see like the inner workings of politics. Yeah. What didn't you like?
Well, I wanted to tell you one thing about the family scene. You said there was one where they were arguing about whether or not the son should join the army, and I thought that one was really good in particular.
Me too.
What I didn't like, at the beginning they started out, and there were a bunch of guys talking to Lincoln, and they were like quoting his Gettysburg Address, and I thought it was pretty cheesy. And I've heard like it wasn't considered that good of a speech at the time, so that was just like a little bit overdone to me. But I don't know, if you're not that big into history, maybe you would have been like hearing the words for the first time or whatever, so it was like a little bit educational, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the only thing I really didn't like. I jotted down like a couple other things that I liked. I liked the Thaddeus Stevens character, Tommy Lee Jones. The whole time he was like really pushing to abolish slavery, and I didn't know that much about him, and he seemed like one of the most like moral characters in the story. I mentioned the Lincoln family arguments. One other thing I put, you really see that Lincoln really had to choose between ending the war or ending slavery. Like he could have ended the war and kept slavery and at the time saved lives, but he chose to do the principled thing and try to get slavery ended for good.
Mm-hmm.
So what didn't you like about the movie?
I had a hard time being interested in this movie. It was very long. I hate to say it's like boring. I thought it was boring, and it was a little bit confusing too. I really didn't know too much what was going on, and he hates when I ask him too many questions, so I was just kind of confused.
The funny thing was, like, oh, Adrian wants to watch this movie, it's probably like a boring historical thing. I was okay with it. I was interested in it, and she didn't really like it. And I ended up watching a lot of it twice because she fell asleep the first time, and I didn't even
That'll happen
watching
for probably
it again.
every single movie on this list, though.
So
he only likes to watch things at night. I can fall asleep. So out of 5 stars, I'm gonna rate it a 2.
I'd probably give it 3.5 out of 5 if I had to give it stars. It was good. Can't complain too much about it, but it's not one that I'd be like, oh yeah, let's pop this in again and see it. Can't wait to see it. But it's definitely something that I would say if you're interested in the history, which it's not my favorite period of history, but I got more interested in it having watched the movie. So if you want to learn more about like what it took to end slavery and the Civil War and the 13th Amendment and like mostly the politics behind it, it's a pretty good movie to watch. I don't know how accurate it is, but I assume they probably did the best they could with it.
It was also kind of cool to see Lincoln interacting with like his different constituents and stuff.
Now the question is, what's the better Lincoln movie, this or Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
I like that Vampire Hunter one, actually.
That one wasn't bad.
Okay, so we're going to pick a new one. I made him do this so we could pick a new one from our Boney bunch.
Okay, the winner is...
What is it?
Not visible on here.
6?
No, wait a minute. 20. It's backwards on there. Number 20. So what's that?
Movie that made you cry.
All right, so next time you'll hear us talk about a movie that made you cry.
It's like every movie I've ever watched.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.